Welcome. We are here to move through the Enneagram Type 8, and I have three stunning women to help me unpack all of the nuance and the beauty that is held by one of my favorite types in the Enneagram. So I'm excited to unpack this, and I would love for each of you to take a moment and just introduce us to you, your type, where you are in the world, what you do, anything you feel is relevant. And then we'll sort of dive into the questions.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Emily. I am a social 8, wing 9. Personally, I am married, been married for 28 years. I have a adult son who is a bodybuilder in Las Vegas. And professionally, I work in education. I am in district management in a mid-size public school district in Southern California area. I have been with the same school district for over 20 years, so I am pretty loyal to that. And it's nice to meet you, and I look forward to walking through this 8 journey with all of you.
Thanks, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. I am an attorney. I am married for, 16 years. I have 2 boys, my Irish twins that are a year apart and keep us on our toes, and live in Florida, but manage a team in California. And I'm a self-preservation 8, wing 7, and happy to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Becky. I live in Southern California. I'm in mental health. I am a relationally dominant 8. I'm excited to be here. I'm not quite sure what my wing is yet, but I'm sure I'll figure that out.
Yes.
I actually have identical twins. And I've been with my husband for about 25 years.
So collectively, the 3 of you have been married for a very long time. I think we should pivot this panel to be about maintaining long-term relationships without losing your hair.
Yes. How to maintain a long-term relationship when you're an 8.
I love it. All right, we've got loads of experience here. So I would love if we could start with how you came to understand your type and what that process was like for you. Did it fit? Did you resist it? Anything that sort of feels relevant. I was in the group of many, many people who mistyped myself, and then all of the online tests mistyped me. So I had a really hard time reckoning with who I was. And so I am always interested by this journey. So anyone who wants to start.
I'd be happy to start again. So I was introduced to the Enneagram several years ago by my husband. Actually, stumbled upon it myself and started talking about it. My husband has a master's in theology, and so he knew about it through some of kind of the work of the spiritual work and different elements in that way. And so he knew about it, and he had a very, very old paper copy. And I just took the little quiz, right? And it identified me, the little quiz, and how I calculated it as a 9. I'm like, well, yes, I am. I'm a peacemaker. I want everyone to be happy, and I felt really confident with that. And then just kind of played with it a little bit. Then I was lucky enough to attend a weekends with the Radical Wellness Collaborative group back in April, and was introduced to more of the services of Radical Wellness, which is how I then linked up with Erin and said I would love the opportunity to actually be typed appropriately. And so we did that, and ended up with the kind of sitting with the Type 8. I wasn't fully comfortable, and nor am I yet comfortable with it, because Erin did recognize the 8, especially in the feminine side of things, as being the bitch of the Enneagram. And
it's a sad stereotype.
Yeah, so I wasn't super comfortable with that concept, because I don't think that I am that, but I know I can be that when I need to be. And then also understanding more about the social subtype of it, and it being the actual contradiction in a sense, but I still carry a lot of the eights, but there's still a lot of the contradiction pieces. I love the piece of the social eight being the social antisocial person. I call myself lots of contradictions. I call myself the most confident, insecure person. I've called myself the most introverted extrovert. And now the Enneagram has called me the antisocial social person. So I am a bit of a contradiction, and in that sense. So that's how I was introduced more into it. And then since the typing with Erin just a couple months ago, I've just done my own individual reading and researching and understanding the types a little bit differently.
We can tell you're in education, Emily. That was like on point.
Wait till you hear from the lawyer's next.
Well, I have a question for Emily. What number is your husband?
Well, it depends if you ask me or he,
okay.
He has not officially been typed. I believe he is a 6, and I see that. And I watched the Living the Enneagram channel, the video on the type 6, and I still feel that way. But we're going to work on getting him typed sometime soon.
I mean, that's what Erin and I have argued a little bit, because I think my husband's a 5, and she's like, I think he's a 6. And so it's real interesting to see how, like, Becky, has your husband been?
No, I can barely consciously understand this for myself.
Okay.
So as soon as I really grasp this, then I'm sure I'll decide what he is, but I don't know yet.
Okay. I just thought maybe there was a pattern, which is just real interesting. I started listening to some podcasts, over COVID, and Jen Hatmaker was doing like a whole series on the Enneagram, and every week was a number. And I was like, what is this thing? I had not heard of it. And I was fascinated. And they had someone on for the 8, and they said, the 8 is the female 8 is the most misunderstood type in the whole Enneagram. And I was immediately like, oh my God, that's who I am. And you're right. It's totally misunderstood. It is totally, what I'm saying is not what people impart a lot of things behind what I say, and it's not remotely true. I just think in sometimes a little bit more black and white and just get to the point type of thing. But it was real interesting, especially being an attorney, especially the, kind of bitch side of things, or she's bossy, or I've been called all of those things my whole life. And so it was in a way a relief that, oh, it's just, that's actually who I am. And there's other people out there. It's not just me, and that we're misunderstood. So I ended up wanting to do a little bit more with it, found Radical Wellness, found Erin, did the typing, and then did a 6-week class where I was the only 8, but we were with like all 7s, which is real interesting. And the only thing that was kind of, I'm still struggling with a little bit, although I can see it, is that I'm incredibly social. So I was like, oh, of course I'm social, and of course I'm relational. And then she's like, no, it's actually self-preservation. But it's interesting to kind of think about how I am, but then how I actually act. And how I actually act, it can be both, but I still kind of need to gravitate towards kind of filling my own tank, being my own safety net type of thing, which, is its own issues sometimes. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And I think my husband's either a 5 or a 6. Which is,
there you go.
Makes for an interesting relationship. Yeah.
So I came into it because I did a class with Erin, and which is very new. And I originally had thought that I was a 1 because I feel like, oh, I'm so black and white. And then I was like, maybe I'm a 9 because I have to manage a huge team and I can see the big picture. But it was interesting because when I heard, I'm totally good with being an 8. This makes perfect sense. My whole life makes sense now. I'm like, oh yes, because she said something where it was like, I need to be powerful to be safe. And like my energy takes up a lot of space. And I'm like, Yes. And I don't feel like I do not feel like I'm aggressive unless I need to be. The only time I'm aggressive is like in the defense of someone or if someone wrongs somebody. But I don't feel like on the general, I'm an offensive person. I'm not aggressive. But I find I find that it's very tedious to talk about nonsense. And I'd rather just tell you what I need from you. I would rather you tell me what you need from me, because then I feel like things go faster and our lives are easier. So when I kind of like boiled it down, I was like, yes, I feel much more comfortable when I'm in a place of power. It's what I've done in therapy for the last 20 years. It's the thing that is an issue in my marriage. I know this about myself. It was harder for me because I feel like as I've gotten older, I've managed it better. So I don't want to say pretend because it's still me, but I pretend a little bit better to like be the normal one and moderate some of my instincts. But I remember telling Aaron, like, I will never be taken advantage of again. That will never happen. This is how I am. Like it's never going to happen. And that's kind of, so I was like, yes, I'm an 8. I feel good about this. It is what it is. And if people want to call me a bitch, I'm totally okay with it. Like, I think maybe I took that to like the extreme a little bit. But it also made sense because there was a part where, you know, where it was like lust for life and like, I really kind of identified with that, where it's, the intensity is what kind of keeps me going. And when things are not intense, like I thrived during COVID. It was probably the best time of my life. I'm like, oh, I have to go to work every day and we could die. Okay, let's live life. Like, let's do this. So I feel like a lot of things about me made sense.
And what a beautiful representation just already of the 3 instinctual patterns. Like just how different each of you are. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the conversation as we keep sort of breaking or broadening these terrible stereotypes that say women who are direct are immediately aggressive, right? Because that's just not the 8 stereotype. That is just women, strong women in general. We're sort of told societally, like, be quieter, be less. And that's just not natural for someone who orients towards power as a way to stay safe, right? You're actually, in asking me to be less, you're actually telling me to decrease my safety. Oh no, like it's going to sort of dial it up. And so when we hold the sort of big picture of the 8, what feels sort of common or commonplace is the bigger I get, the more tender I feel, right? So I've learned to protect the most innocent and most tender parts of me. And I've learned how to do that through a very specific strategy, that self-preservation, social or relational strategy. Now, we learn one in childhood and our work is to evolve into all 3, right? So I will bet that through this process, you'll see a little bit of yourselves in each other, right? Because that's what sort of health looks like, is to expand. But we sort of start in one of these instincts. And Christine, we can sort of hold that to be social isn't the social instinct, right? So we look at, we've got the Emily sitting in the social instinct and she sort of feels like the most introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, right? So the social doesn't actually mean that we're social in terms of people. It means that I value belonging, right? So the social instinct says I need to belong. And so what does an 8 do to belong? I make myself quieter. I make myself softer. I make myself look more like a 9 or a 2 or a more other-oriented energy, right? That's where her beautiful contradiction comes in, is I'm going to make it smaller so that I fit in. Where the self-preservation energy says that I'm going to take my 8 and I'm going to use it to resource me, my knowledge, my routine, the rules. I'm very pragmatic. I'm very no nonsense. I'm very get stuff done, right? Like I'm going to bring it all in me. It has nothing to do with how social I am. Where the relational instinct says, how big can I get, right? How intense can my energy be? And how can I use that to sort of break the rules and live the life that I want? And oh, COVID, watch out, death, I'm coming at you, right? Like it's sort of taking it here. And so each of you will take that energy with you in some capacity. And I'm certain you experience all of those things. So already you can just see how beautifully you resource to self, right? The container of self, resource towards the herd or belonging, or resource sort of energetically with some intensity towards a focus. So what sort of feels true for you as you think about the construct of the eight, the instincts, as you watch each other, what sort of musings do you have? Don't make poor Emily go first again.
I thought we agreed upon that. Emily goes first. I thought we have a plan. What? I'll go first then. I think it's what I have enjoyed about the different ways in which we all resource is I think I resource differently with different people. So in public, my energy gets bigger because if I don't know you, I need you to stay at arm's length. Whereas like with my husband, my energy can be much more vulnerable and I can resource in a different way. So it's been interesting to kind of look at how I act with certain people. Because it's always me. It's just a bit different based on how comfortable I am. Because if I don't know you and I'm afraid you're going to come at me in a certain way, I'm going to make sure I get you first. I need to make sure that you know that I will not tolerate certain things. Whereas with other people, it's just easier to be relational.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, thank you, Becky. It's an excellent point how you made it different, like how you are maybe professionally versus personally. The concepts of belonging, making yourself feel small so others feel more comfortable, your value, your worth, all of those are very much apparent in my world professionally. And I use the power and my advancement to prove my worth. Right. Whereas personally, I tend to be much more goofy and robust and energetic and funny. And while I think I'm all those things professionally as well, there's a place and a time. And when I'm not, you'll know I'm not those things. Right. And it's a very clear line. I had a colleague who asked me, do you ever get mad? And I said, you'll know when, right? And then there was a recent conversation and they said, this is the mad part, right? Like, this is the one, you found her, right? So it's different, how Becky talked about, with personal relationships versus kind of how your sense of belonging is different professionally than it is personally.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Emily.
I would love to just say something on that end too, because my staff has said, because you don't see that I'm mad, it's the energy in the room. So my staff will be like, oh, like I'll see them and they're kind of whispering and they're like, she's in a bad mood. And I'm like, I haven't even said anything yet.
Yes, absolutely, Becky. I have a sign on my desk that says, please take responsibility for the energy you bring to this space, right? So because it is that, like, you'll know what my energy is. It will be clear in the room. Yeah.
No, I think that's perfect. And the aggressive, assertive, someone just sent me actually a text today. It was a little comic and it said, what's the difference between, a woman is asking another one, what's the difference between assertive and aggressive? And the woman says back, your gender. It's like, yeah, 100%. I kind of have the same thing. I had a conversation with one of my, associates, female associates, and saying, because she was apologizing for something. And I said, I need you to stop apologizing. You're a woman. You do not need to apologize for things that are not your fault and are beyond your control. And then she's like, well, I just want to make sure you weren't mad or whatever. And I said, you will know when I'm mad and I will pick you'll really know. But same thing, Becky, like the energy that people can pick up on. And I guess for me, I can go kind of quiet and I need to distance. But for me, you know, I have a you know, family at home. I have 3 sisters that I'm the oldest. So, you know, constantly trying to take care of that, trying to take care of people at work, trying to take care of my family. So I kind of turn into like where everything is like a mom mode in a way. And that my protectiveness as an 8 kind of, I think sometimes is like too much. And it's like, well, I need to be their boss, not their mom. And you know, it's the urge to kind of protect people. And then I think when it's not appreciated to the extent that I think it should be, then I need to put, you know, more distance. And I'm trying to learn how to balance all of that and kind of balance my, you know, my energy as well.
Sure. Any other thoughts? So how do you see things like control or being in power or sort of maintaining your strength, right? Sort of the ability to be the protector, family, friends, coworkers, team members. How do you see control, power, holding strength show up for you, both in life and at work?
I just feel like you know, could be stuff from childhood and all of that, working on all of that, but that not only do I have to be in control of myself, I have to not control other people, but it's my responsibility to protect them and defend them and make sure that nothing happens to them. And it manifests itself in my nightmare, like my dreams or my nightmares, where it's like, it's a plane crash and only I can save everyone. Or a tornado's coming and only I can get everyone to safety. I mean, it's very cliche, but I struggle with that a little bit, like, because it's just the instinct to kind of want to do that and making sure that I, you know, don't wear myself out and become very unhealthy, you know, I think in that sense. But in terms of power, I think I'm sure the other women would agree, like a lot of times it just comes natural to us and people want to give it to us. So I'm assuming that when we walk into the room, it's like, oh yeah, they'll take care of it. They've got this, like, and that just becomes your role all the time. And I thrive in that, but it you know, I think just the boundaries sometimes need to be explored a little bit better.
Sure.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Christine in regards to having the power, and when you walk into the room, tasks are just kind of automatically provided for you, whether you ask for them or not. And so, yeah, I experienced that as well. But it's interesting, Christine, what you said about being the protector and that you feel that you will be the one to protect everyone. I don't personally necessarily feel that because I am in control of the situation. Therefore, people want me to be protected because I got it under control. Right. So I look at it just, you know, just kind of a little bit differently. Right. And so some people may call that a control freak, whatever you call it, whatever you want. I'm getting the shit done. Right. And it's going to get done. And so I didn't ask if we could curse we can curse
yes.
on YouTube because I have twice now. I'm going to, can you edit that part?
Yeah. No, and I'm not going to, because we're bringing the fullness of who we are here.
Sorry about that. All my family and friends watching, I apologize.
No apologies.
No apologies. I don't apologize. Just Aaron told me to say it. So yeah, so I control the situation, therefore I don't have to protect. And so that's when I don't have control of the situation, where the protector comes then out, right? Because it's like, okay, now I need to make sure that you're taken care of because I wasn't able to address it in the way that you would be taken care of for you to be safe. So, yeah.
I think I come at it from a little bit of like when I walk in the room and all the tasks are assigned to me and everybody is texting that they need something from me. I think I'm more, no, I don't want to do that. You can do that. Or yes, I will take that on. I think where I struggle is with things that I know other people can do. So I feel very protective of those that I don't think can do it. Like, oh, I bet you wish you could do this, but you can't. And so those are the people that I like jump in and then get like very motherly, and I can't come back from that very easily. But when someone I know can do something, assigns a task, then I'm like, no, you need to, I'm not doing that for you. Like, lock it up, sister. So, and that's usually when I get, labeled aggressive or whatever, because which I don't think is aggressive. If you can do something on your own, do it on your own. So I struggle a little bit with that. And I think I struggle a little bit with, when someone does something and it's not perfect, and they're like need to get constant reassurance that it's okay that it's not perfect. It's challenging for me. I'm very challenged by needing that constant reassurance that everything's going to be okay. It's like, you made a mistake. What do you think? You're the first person on the planet to make a mistake? Like, what the? I did not ask if we could curse either, but I knew that Erin would not ask me on this if she did. I was like, I hope these during my class, I was like, I hope these women don't think I'm a trucker, because I'm not. But I was definitely raised like a boy. So I'm like, I have such a terrible mouth. So anyway, that's, I think, the angle that I come from before I get myself into trouble.
We don't call it, my kids don't call it bad language or naughty words or swear words. They're adult words. You can use these words when you're a grown up, and we're all grown ups. So here we go. Well, it's so helpful to sort of hear how each of you sort of approach the control, power, protection, coping mechanism of the 8, because I do hear a lot from the 8 strategy that I'm handed leadership, I'm handed responsibility. People gravitate towards, sort of the natural protective quality, right? Like, you gain followers whether you want them or not, because you just take up space, right? Like, you stand in your power and your authority, your competence, your knowing, and then there's also the expectation that others are going to do the same, right? The sort of self-sufficiency of the 8 that's like, look, I've had to take care of myself for a really long time. I know you can do this, right? I know you can do it because I do it, and I've been doing it for most of my life. So just do it, right? And so there can be very little patience or space for when somebody doesn't, quote unquote, live up to their potential, right? Because you've had to be the protector and the person in charge of yourself. So what does it take for you to soften and to rest? What does it take for you to transfer power? What do people do in your life that allow you to sort of sit into that, right? Because as someone watching this who maybe is new to the 8, and they're like, I don't even know what it looks like to let somebody in that much, right? What would you say? What would you recommend? Or nothing.
Everyone jumped on that one. We're like, okay.
Next question.
Over. What time is it? There was one other thing I wanted to say though, because my experience has been that that I am very comfortable in that, like, the powerful role and the one who knows what to do and the emergency. But what I've struggled with is people appreciate that, but oftentimes there's a lot of jealousy because they don't feel as capable. And that's been actually a real struggle in my life, because other women I only work with women. I don't work with any men. They tend to get a little bit jealous of that. And I wonder if you ladies have the same experience, because it's been rough for me, because I don't know how to tell somebody how to be competent. I don't know what do you even say? Like, oh, I don't know. Apparently you didn't have the same trauma as I did. You've learned different coping skills. Like, I don't know. Maybe you had a normal childhood. I don't know.
I think for for me, again, it comes back to some of the, kind of mama bear type of instinct. So being in the legal world, the firm that I work for now is women owned, although most of my team is still men, but we are very intentional about bringing up the other women and younger women. And it's frustrating to me because I'm like, you need to just, but I think it's another job I've taken on and I want to do that. So it's more like helping along. I think it's when it's, in my personal life, people come to me and say, oh, this is what's going on with this situation. And I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's all the advice. I mean, and trust me, tons of free legal advice. And then they do the opposite, or they like, and I know, and I take on all of their information and sit with them and be a good friend and give advice and whatever. And then if they don't do it, then it makes me really upset. And not just because it's like a waste of my time, but I kind of see everything in terms of like, and this is very 8, like justice and injustice. And if like you're in a bad situation and you're choosing not to leave that, or you're choosing to, you sought out advice. And of course I give plenty of unsolicited advice too, which I'm working on, where I really am. But, if you don't take it, I see that as like, it's just so, with so many things, it's so clear to me and it makes me really upset. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand about the 8s. It's not that just we have views on things, or it's like it's like personal. It's like, it hurts my heart when I see something that I think is so clear and someone should really do this and live up to their potential. And it's almost like remember the dress that was on the internet and it was like white or gold or blue or red or whatever. And people were like, what are you talking about? It's clearly whatever color you thought. To me, that's how 8s feel all the time. Right? We're in a world where it's super clear and it's really, really hard to think of people seeing things other ways, or being content with the fact that it's not the way we see it and wanting to do something different. And it really takes, it's a struggle daily. Like, okay, maybe I don't need to give my opinion on this, even though I know it's obviously the right thing to do and people should do that. But it can be hard. Like, it really hurts. It's not like I give advice and then someone does something different. It's like, no big deal. I take it. It hurts my heart. It hurts my core. And I think that's what I would love people to understand. We're not pushing you away because we're annoyed or whatever. It's like, it like hurts me to see, a friend stay with a terrible, in a terrible marriage after we've talked it through and whatever. Like, that stuff like really hurts. And that's that kind of justice side of things that makes me want to really protect you. But then if you don't want the protection, that hurts as well, too. So it was a long way of saying that. Anyway, Emily, what do you got?
No, those are some great points. I appreciate all of them. I was really kind of thinking about them, but in regards to making myself safe and what others can do to make me feel more safe. The 8, as we've already talked about, tend to have more power. They have the control. They're sometimes even seen as intimidating. I've read, don't agree, but I've read, someone said that. I think in making me feel safe is people who recognize that sometimes I don't have it under control. And sometimes I don't want the power. And sometimes I'm intimidating. And that's still okay. And I still love you and I still care about you. And so people that are able to recognize that, I think is a safe place for me as an 8. In addition to that, as an 8 and as the protector and being the one that you always want to protect others, having someone see when you need protection is really, really, like, that is something that means the most to me of somebody else. Like, I don't have to tell them I need protection. They see it, whether it's emotional protection, physical protection, mental, whatever protection it is. They can see that I'm in a weak place and can be there for me. That makes me feel the most safe in my eightness as well.
Sure.
Exactly what she said. Yeah, exactly.
And I think it starts with like one or two people. I mean, I don't have a lot of people that I feel safe with, but I do have one or two that I feel the most safe with and that see me for all that I am. And sometimes, you know, my husband, you know, sometimes I do get aggressive with him and he's like, no, stop. Like, what are you afraid of right now? And I'm like, you're gonna leave me. We're gonna like, I don't know, something, you know, but he's the one who can kind of snap me out of it and be like, no, what is this really about? And I'm like, I feel bad about myself today. I'm exhausted. Everybody needs something from me and I'm exhausted. I think that has been I think that's the hardest part for me of being I don't sleep. It's hard, you know, I don't eat well. I'm exhausted by having all the power and I don't want to give it up. I you know, it's very contradictory and I understand that. And I sit in that and I know that, but I'm exhausted by it. And I still am terrified to give it up.
Yes.
And this is the part that I love about the Enneagram, right? Is because responsibility in relationship should be collective, right? So when we experience the 8 out in the world or 8-like behavior, right? You don't have to be an 8 to have 8-like behavior and be direct and clear and some of those things that come across to maybe the 9s of the world or the 4s or the 2s or the 7s who maybe are more othering and more tender, as that feels aggressive or mean or intimidating, right? These sort of emotional responses to clarity when I have had no clarity in my life, right? And so when we hold speaking to our listening, we can hold the intention behind an 8's directness is to get to the solution so that we can get to safety quickly, right? Like we're just looking to stay in control. I don't really care about being the boss or being bossy or being, you know, any of these things. I just want to get to control quickly so we can all sort of move on with our lives, right? Whereas a 9 may hear that as, you know, sort of intimidation. And so it's the responsibility of both parties to go, oh, that intimidation comes from within me and my inability to come forward within conflict. And so anything more aggressive than where I stand feels like too much, right? And we learn to sort of ebb and flow where each of us are instead of just othering. And I think the 8s that I've talked to in life get othered more than other types because it goes against the norm, especially when you add gender to it, right? And then you start to add racial identity to it and it gets even more complex, right? And so this is where I think the Enneagram really helps us to soften when it comes to identity and behavior and make enough room for people to cope the way they cope and listen the way that we need to listen, right? And so I think you all sort of explained that really beautifully and are hopefully going to help people make more room for the way people move in the world, right? Like, what would it be like if I didn't take it personally? Oh, that this is just clear. Yeah. So what do you think your gifts are? What's your superpower?
Well, I'm pretty awesome.
Pretty yes, great. Emily.
Yeah, pretty great. I no, in all seriousness, I would say a gift is kind of what you already mentioned, Erin, and my superpower is I can see what needs to get done, and I can see the actions to get it done, right? And a superpower is I tend to process maybe those actions a little quicker than some, and sometimes that's annoying because sometimes I just wish people would get it quicker and like, just get it done. Like we don't need to overanalyze this, just get it done, right? So I would say that maybe is my superpower in realizing kind of the clarity of what needs to happen. I get detoured or stumbled in that a lot, having to work through kind of just the professional life, the things that get in the way, right? And it makes it difficult sometimes. So sometimes I don't feel like I do that as well as I do it in my head. So see, there I am, contradiction. I'm awesome and I failed at the same time.
Hey, welcome to being human.
That's me. Yeah.
I think, mine and all of these women is being loyal and being in people's corners. And I have a sister who told me recently, she's like, because something happened, she's like, what people do not realize is that if Christine is in your corner, then you are the luckiest person in the whole world. And that, like, just having you in your corner to be outraged for, on your behalf and to support you and do all the things, all the range of emotions, because I think we can do all of that. We can be happy for people, we can empower them, we can speak into them. So it's not even just direct, but it just means collectively we're in their corner, we are loyal, we will literally fight for you. And we're the first people that will go egg someone's house if they have wronged you and plan all. And I think because I also have the 7, there's no adventure off limits for revenge, but that carries into, my professional life as well, is that I'm in my client's corner all the time. I'm in my team's corner, and I'll fight for you, and I'll be educated about it, and I'll do it wisely, and can, generally outsmart someone else. My husband always says, stop taking my deposition, but I'm like, in 3 questions, I can get to what I need to be answered and already make a plan while you're sitting making your 20th spreadsheet on something. So I think also, like, fast decision making is also really, also for what I do, but I think that's a good power of the 8 as well, to be direct and then act on it and, dominate the world, of course.
Yes. How about you, Becky?
I definitely ditto what the other 2 ladies said. I think my superpower is the ability to kind of remove the emotion and see the big picture, which I'm sure is a downfall as well. But sometimes that's very useful, and you just kind of need to see what needs to happen and what is really going on versus how I feel about what's going on. There's a time and a place for that, but I feel like I can separate those 2 things really well. And super funny story about how loyal I am and how I'll go to the ends of the earth real quick. A girlfriend of mine's husband was cheating on her, and the woman lived next door. And so every other week I would send the Mormons one week and the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I would call their place and I would say, hey, I was drunk last week and I don't remember you coming. Can you come again? And have them come for a year. I was so committed. The level of commitment, I was like, no, this is not happening. Like, her husband was literally jumping over the fence to go have an affair. I'm like, I can't. So I am with you on the loyalty thing. I'm like, oh no, this is not happening. There's the amount of, I won't say anything else because I'm sure some of it was illegal, but that was the funny story.
That's amazing. And, your people are lucky. All 3 of you, your people are lucky with the fierceness with which you love, right? Like, and there is a fierceness that people who don't know the inside maybe take a different way. But once they're in, they're like, oh yeah, like it is an incredible amount of love that is sort of being poured around and over me. So,
and I would have say that's why we're all still married, because my husband appreciates how loyal I am. He's like, he really appreciates that, and how, like, I'll have his back till the end of time. Like,
that's awesome. So marry an 8, the moral of the story. I have a saying when my type 7 is acting up. I'll say, like, my 7 is showing, right? And this is usually when I'm not at my best self. So when your type is showing, when you're sort of in pattern, what do you wish people would know or remember or hold on to?
My jerkness or bitchiness is simply protecting my fear or my insecurities or my unsureness, things of that nature. That's what I would like people to know. That I'm not just being difficult for the sake of being difficult, or I am insecure about something myself. And so that's how I protect it. So or contradiction, this is like kind of my aha moment, right? Or I just completely shut down. So I'm just completely like absent, right? So the whole silent treatment is me protecting something.
Sure.
So I come both ways.
Yeah, same. Like it's not, my directness is not, don't take it personally. We're just trying to get stuff done because only, either someone has given us the responsibility or we feel like we have to have it. And it has nothing to do with the intent behind it. The intent is always actually like the opposite. It's to help. It's to help you out. And how could you possibly think that, I'm attacking you when I just actually want to help? And and then that's hurtful if it's misinterpreted. But it's really hard, and it would take a lot more time to do it differently and be less direct. And and then also that I need to take a break, and that I can be really exhausted as well. And Becky, that's the word I've said like all year. It's like, I'm just exhausted. I'm just exhausted, and I need to take a break. And then maybe some things I don't want to take on. So I feel like an 8 is always like the executor of someone's will, right? It's always like that person's gonna just like take care of it. And sometimes, you know what? I don't want to. I'm tired. And then when I say I'm tired, like I actually really mean it. I think that's part of it too. It's like, no, for real, like I'm really tired and I'm barely hanging on. So if I'm vulnerable enough to tell you that, take it and like help me out. Because if that's seen as like not like a joke, but at least like not real, or I'm being, I'm not being a martyr. Like if I'm tired or it's like too much, then I really truly need the help. And then if it's not given, then that just makes me way worse, way insecure. And like, then I'm not worthy of help, because in the 3 times in my life that I've asked for it, maybe one time no one helped me or didn't take me seriously. And that, that can really mess with my head, at least. If I'm actually putting myself out there and it's not reciprocated or it's not listened to clearly, that's my own injustice, and that's hurtful too. So anyway.
Thank you.
I don't know that I have anything to add to either of those things. I'm like, yeah, I think that's, I think
ditto and ditto.
What? Yeah, I'm like,
ditto and ditto.
Yeah, I think the only thing I maybe wish people knew is that, that my intensity actually has nothing to do with them. And there's just a lot of like, somehow you've created a story in your head that it's all about you. And like, I didn't even notice you were in the room, because I'm so in my head about how I do 27 other things. And so it would be nice if maybe people just knew, like, maybe you could just ask me like, wait, are you upset with me? And I am happy to tell you, no, like, I didn't even notice you were here. I'm so in my head that it's hard for me to kind of calm down. So that's the only thing that I would say that maybe I would add.
That's awesome. I think that will be very helpful to folks. And Christine, you allude to something that I think really frames my last question. And that is the capacity of the 8, right? You have a large, deep well, and that comes from a lot of conditioning, a lot of practice. When somebody is in control and works the muscle of control, I build the sort of depth that comes from it, right? And the work is to recognize I don't actually have to fill the well, right? I can slow it down. And oftentimes the 8 learns that the hard way, right? Like I sort of, because I can, I do, and I fill up. And so what are things that you have learned that help you replenish, that help you rest, that help you take care of that sort of ginormous capacity to control, to protect, to be in strength, right? Because Christine, you said it perfectly, and I know you've all alluded to it in some way, shape, or form. I just want to set it down for a little while. So how do you do that?
I had to just be more honest and say things a couple of times, I think, to people like, I can't do this, or this is a hard year. So this year was hard for a lot of different reasons just in our lives. And I started having to say that actually, and really repeat that. And if I wasn't getting help or I wasn't feeling the rest, then I would need to keep saying it. But I'm learning to actually speak up more and be okay with that I need to take a rest. And I've definitely needed a lot more alone time than I have ever needed in my life. And I just, I don't know if it came from you, Erin, or someone said to me,
if it's good, I'll take it.
Great. And it was like, think every day, what is mine to actually do? What is mine to take on? And I started telling myself every day, okay, what is actually mine to do? And is it to I have a lot of feelings about what's going on in our country, but what is actually mine to do in this space? And instead of using all my energy and throwing it at something, I think I've had to internally just kind of slow myself down and think about, is this meeting for me? Is this volunteer opportunity really for me? And it's not the busyness of I just need to say no more. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just more what is my personal responsibility, and who can benefit from that, and how can I make sure that I'm continuing to be a benefit, because I need to take a freaking rest. And so I think this year forced it, frankly, but I really start thinking about, do I actually need to go fix this? Is that actually my problem?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you know what? It's not. And maybe I could fix it, but if someone doesn't want the help or whatever, I don't need to be inserting myself into every single person's problems, even though I think, of course, I can make their lives all better. But really, I ran out of bandwidth. I learned it the hard way, and I ran out of bandwidth, and it was really hard. And now I'm trying to only add back the things that really are mine to do, and who I really do need to protect. And in this year, the people I needed to protect were my kids, my family. And so I definitely let some things go, and I'm trying to be very mindful about what things kind of come back.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Again, Christine, yes to all of them. I would also add, as the 8 is the protector, as we've discussed, I think what I have learned is that I need to take the time to protect myself. So I replenish and I rest by allowing myself to be loyal to me, to be a protector of me, and that I don't have to be all those things for everyone else. So worked hard on that in the last year to do that with weekends with Elise Snipes and Radical Wellness, and taking that time for myself. And from that, my group, if they're watching, would be very proud of me, because I've become a journaler because of weekends. And so, and I was not a journaler before. I don't got time for that. But now I sit and I write and I say how, and it's not just about feelings. Sometimes it's just about just regurgitating just thoughts, right? And so I think that is something that I really feel like I'm still a work in progress on, but I'm trying to protect myself and just get to know me a little bit more.
That's awesome, Emily.
I would echo both of what you ladies said. I would also say that, part of what I have tried to do is to kind of name when I tell somebody no, that I name that I know I took care of this before, but I'm actually not up to it anymore. So that's been a big one, because I don't like when I say no, Christine, you were kind of saying like how people think it's a joke or whatever. Like, no, I know I did this before, but I'm actually not up to it anymore. So you're going to need to take care of that yourself. And it kind of shocks people. But I've really tried to do that. And then I think too, I have really tried to acknowledge that, yes, being who I am is a form of safety, but it's also a way to feel better than, like, oh, you can't, your well's not this deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of sad. And I think so like in recognizing that, it makes it easier for me to be like, okay, what is it really about that I need to feel better than right now? Because that's not a core of who I am, but it's absolutely a way that I use my power and my well and my ability, because I can justify things if I feel, it's like I bounce between better than, less than, right? So it's like, this is my way to feel better than. And then if I say no, I'm less than, like, oh my God, this is so pathetic, I can't do this. So really trying to be cognizant of where I'm at and what I'm using this for, because it's not necessarily always my first go-to, but I mean, we all use these things for a reason. So, so just being really kind of aware of that and what that looks like for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. I appreciate you, Christine, Emily, Becky, being here, sharing your truth and your journey and your vulnerability as a way to sort of resource and support other people who might be struggling to figure out how they fit in, or feeling like, am I the only one who's like this? And recognizing, no, there's lots of us who use the sort of protective energy that the 8 often embodies easily. And I will tell you, my journey as a 7 in sort of my insecurity has been, how do I tap in the 8 that's in me, right? If I'm going to be at this table, I better use my voice. I better center it for, the greater good, or what feels right. And it has helped me be in many a room where I felt like maybe I was an imposter. And so all of that channeling of, Emily, I'm going to paraphrase, of like protecting my damn self, right? Like, that is such a gift to model to the rest of the world. And, I definitely know I wish more women felt empowered to step into their power from the inside out. So thank you for showing us that it's possible, and it's possible to do with love and a sense of humor and some humility and everything in between. So my gratitude is immense. Thank you.